Listen carefully, because this is not something you stumbled upon. This is not just another message passing through your screen while you scroll in distraction. No, this moment was orchestrated, timed, aligned. And if you are hearing these words right now, it means something in your spirit has already been activated. There are days, ordinary days, that come and go without leaving a mark. But then there are days that heaven itself circles in eternity. Days that were written before your first breath ever filled your lungs. Days that carry weight, authority, consequence. And June 26th is one of those days. You may not have noticed anything unusual when the date first appeared. Maybe it looked like just another day on the calendar. Maybe you were caught up in your routine, your responsibilities, your worries. But deep inside, if you're honest, something has felt different lately. A subtle tension, a quiet anticipation, like something is about to shift, but you can't quite explain why. That feeling, that is not anxiety, that is not coincidence, that is recognition. Your spirit remembers what your mind has forgotten. Before you were born, before your name was ever spoken on earth, there was a conversation in heaven concerning you. Plans were written. Assignments were given. And a moment, this moment, was sealed into your timeline. June 26 was not randomly chosen. It was appointed. And now, here you are standing at the edge of it. Think about everything you've been through recently. The delays that didn't make sense. The doors that almost opened but didn't. The people who suddenly shifted. The emotions you couldn't fully explain. The nights where your mind wouldn't rest. The feeling that something was being held back from you, something that belonged to you. What if I told you none of that was wasted? What if I told you every delay was strategic? Because heaven does not operate in chaos. Heaven operates in timing. And sometimes, what feels like denial is actually divine preparation. You were not being ignored. You were being aligned. There were things that had to be settled in the unseen before they could be released into your life. There were battles you could not see. Decisions being made in the spiritual realm that directly affected your future. And while you were waiting, wondering, even doubting at times, something was being finalized. Something with your name on it. And now, the moment has arrived where silence is breaking. June 26th is not just a date. It is a divine checkpoint. A spiritual turning point where what hath been held up is now being released. Where what was pending is now being signed. Where what was delayed is now being delivered. But here is what you must understand: not everyone will recognize this moment. To others, it will pass like any ordinary day. But to you, the one who was meant to hear this, it will mark the beginning of a shift that cannot be reversed. That is why you feel this pull. That is why something inside you is telling you to pay attention. That is why you couldn't scroll past this message like everything else. Because this is yours. And Archangel Michael has not stepped forward for something small. He does not move without purpose. He does not arrive without authority. If he is being sent to deliver something to you, then it means heaven has already approved it. The signature has already been written. The decision has already been made. And now the announcement is reaching you before the manifestation does. So prepare yourself. Because from this moment forward, things will begin to make sense in ways they never have before. What felt confusing will become clear. What felt blocked will begin to open. What felt distant will move closer. You are not waiting anymore. You are stepping into what has already been decided. And this is only the beginning. Type "I am ready" in the comments if you feel this stirring in your spirit. Blessing code 2626 is now activated around your life. Now listen closely, because what is about to be revealed is the very thing your spirit has been waiting for, even when your mind could not put it into words. That feeling you've carried, that quiet knowing that something belongs to you, something greater, something unresolved. It was never imagination. It was memory. A spiritual memory of what had already been written in your name, long before this moment arrived. The document that has been signed is not made of paper. It is not something you can hold in your physical hands, at least not yet. This document exists in the spirit realm, where decisions are made before they ever appear in your reality. It is a divine decree, sealed with authority, carrying outcomes that cannot be reversed by human opinion or interference. And what is written on it carries your name with precision. This is not a general blessing. This is not something vague or shared among many. This is specific, intentional, personal. Every line, every word, every declaration within this document has been tailored to your journey, your struggles, your sacrifices, and your calling. It holds answers to prayers you thought went unheard. It contains restoration for things you believed were permanently lost. It releases justice in areas where you were overlooked, misunderstood, or treated unfairly. And this is why the weight of your past seasons felt so heavy, because what was being prepared for you required a legal release in the spirit. There were matters that had to be resolved, battles that had to be fought on your behalf, situations that had to reach their appointed conclusion before this document could be signed into activation. You were not just waiting, you were in process. Within this document, there is a restoration clause. Everything that felt delayed, everything that seemed taken, everything that slipped through your hands, it has been accounted for. Nothing was ignored. Nothing was dismissed. Heaven recorded it all. And now, what was once scattered is being gathered. What was once withheld is being released. Not partially, but completely, in a way that aligns with your divine assignment. There is also a declaration of alignment written within it. This means that doors that were previously closed will no longer resist you. Opportunities that once felt out of reach will begin to respond to your presence. You will notice a shift, not just around you, but within you. Your clarity will sharpen. Your confidence will stabilize. Your decisions will carry a new level of authority because they are now backed by what has already been approved in the spirit. And then there is something even deeper, something that explains why the resistance around you intensified before this moment. This document carries a verdict. Yes, a verdict. There were voices, seen and unseen, that spoke against you. There were moments where your worth was questioned, your intentions misunderstood, your path challenged. But this verdict settles it. It overrides every false narrative. It cancels every misjudgment. It silences every accusation that tried to define you outside of who you were created to be. And here is the truth you must hold on to once a verdict is declared in the spirit realm. It does not wait for permission to manifest. It begins. That is why things will start shifting without explanation. People may not understand the change in you. Situations may turn in your favor without warning. What once felt stuck will begin to move, and you won't need to force it. Because this is not about effort anymore. This is about enforcement. And that is why Archangel Michael is involved. Because this document is not just about blessing, it is about execution. It is about ensuring that what has been written is not delayed any longer. That what hath been signed is not intercepted. That what belongs to you reaches you without distortion. You must understand this moment for what it is. This is not luck. This is not timing created by chance. This is a divine release that has already been approved, finalized, and now set into motion. And you are standing at the receiving end of it. So do not question your worthiness now. Do not shrink back into doubt. Do not revisit the mindset that belonged to the season of waiting. Because that season has ended, you are no longer hoping for what might happen. You are stepping into what has already been decided. Type IT is signed in the comments if you receive this truth. Blessing code 777 is now sealed over your path. Now listen, because what is happening in this moment is not symbolic. It is not poetic language meant to inspire you. This is a spiritual reality unfolding with precision. Because when a document like this is signed in the spirit realm, it does not simply float into your life on its own. It must be carried. It must be protected. It must be enforced. And that is why Archangel Michael himself has stepped forward. Michael does not arrive casually. He does not move without command. He is not sent for minor matters or ordinary moments. He is heaven's enforcer, the one who stands at the intersection of promise and manifestation, ensuring that what God has declared cannot be delayed, denied, or distorted. So if he is being assigned to deliver this to you, then you must understand the magnitude of what has just taken place over your life. This is not just a message anymore. This is a transfer. There are forces, seen and unseen, that resist change when it threatens old patterns. There are spiritual barriers that attempt to hold on to what no longer belongs to them. And when something significant is released in your favor, those forces do not simply step aside without resistance. They challenge. They delay. They attempt to interfere. But this is exactly why Michael has been sent. Because what is yours now requires enforcement. Picture this moment not with your physical eyes, but with your spirit. There is movement happening around you right now. A shift in atmosphere. A rearranging of things you cannot yet fully see. Michael stands not at a distance, but closer than you realize, holding what has already been approved for your life. And his presence alone is enough to silence opposition. His authority alone is enough to dismantle interference. This is why the energy around you has felt different. This is why there hath been tension without explanation. Because something has been approaching. Something that carries weight. Something that changes direction. And now, it has arrived. But here is what you must understand clearly: Michael is not just delivering this document. He is guarding its release. There were attempts to block this moment. There were strategies formed to delay your progress, to keep you in cycles of confusion, to make you question your own intuition. You may have felt it in subtle ways, second-guessing yourself, feeling drained without reason, sensing that something was just out of reach. That was not random. That was resistance reacting to what was coming. Because once this document is enforced, everything changes. And Michael does not negotiate with resistance. He does not reason with opposition. He executes what has already been decided. This is why you must not shrink in this moment. This is why you must not fall back into old thinking. Because the version of you that doubted, hesitated, and questioned whether things would ever shift, that version cannot walk fully into what is being delivered now. You are being called to rise into alignment with what has already been declared over you. Michael's presence is not here to comfort you into passivity. It is here to activate you into awareness. You may begin to notice things shifting quickly now. Conversations changing tone. Doors opening unexpectedly. People responding to you differently. Situations resolving without the struggle you once had to endure. And it may feel sudden, almost too sudden. But it is not sudden. It is enforcement. What was signed is now being carried into your reality with authority. And there is something else, something deeper you must hear. When Michael delivers something, he does not leave it unprotected. He remains until it is secured. That means you are not navigating this transition alone. That means every step you take forward is being covered. That means what is reached to you cannot be easily taken away. This is why you must stay aware, stay grounded, stay aligned. Because this is not just about receiving, it is about stepping into a new level of responsibility over what has been given. You asked for change. You prayed for movement. You hoped for resolution. And now it is here, but it is arriving with weight, with purpose, with expectation. Michael is standing as witness to this moment. And what is being placed into motion now will not return to what it once was. So receive this with clarity. Receive this with strength. Receive this without hesitation. Because heaven has already moved. And now it is reaching you. Type IT is delivered in the comments if you feel this shift. Blessing code 909 is now activated around your life. And as this divine delivery reaches your spirit, understand this: every time you choose to support this message, you are not giving to a voice. You are multiplying a movement that carries light into places still trapped in darkness. Just as this document was signed to release what heaven prepared for you, your seed becomes a signature that unlocks clarity, healing, and awakening in someone else's life. The word declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days," and this is that moment where your giving becomes a living echo in eternity. I feel led to say this clearly. I am stepping into alignment, and through my action, I am helping another soul receive their breakthrough. This is not a casual act. It is a prophetic response to what you have just received. As you release through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are opening a river that flows beyond you. And hear this blessing: what you release in obedience will return multiplied, pressed down, and overflowing into your life. Do not delay this moment. Step into it now. Now this is the part your heart has wrestled with the most. This is the question that followed you in quiet moments, the thought that returned when things didn't move the way you expected. Why did it take so long? Why did it feel like you were always close but never quite there? Why did doors open halfway, only to close again? Why did answers come late or not at all? You have asked these questions, even if you never spoke them out loud. And now, the answer is being revealed, not to frustrate you further, but to finally free you from misunderstanding your own journey. Because the delay was never denial. The delay was protection. There were things connected to your future that were not ready when you thought you were. Your environments that looked right on the surface but carried consequences beneath them. There were people whose presence in your life would have complicated what is now being released to you. And if things had moved when you wanted them to, you would have stepped into something incomplete, something misaligned, something that could not sustain what was meant for you. So heaven slowed it down, not to punish you, but to preserve the outcome. While you were waiting, things were being rearranged beyond your visibility. Decisions were being redirected. Paths were being cleared. And at the same time, you were being prepared eternally in ways you could not measure in the moment. Your patience was being stretched. Your discernment was being sharpened. Your strength was being built quietly, without recognition, without applause. And that is why it felt so difficult. Because growth that happens in silence often feels like stagnation. But you were not stuck. You were being shaped. There were also battles that had to be resolved before this document could be signed. Not every delay came from your side. Some delays came from resistance that had to be confronted and dismantled. There were unseen conflicts surrounding your progress, forces that attempted to hold on to what no longer belonged to them, situations that required closure, cycles that needed to end completely before anything new could begin. And those battles, they took time. Time you could not control. Time you did not fully understand. But now, as everything comes into alignment, you are beginning to see why nothing moved prematurely. Because if it had, you would have had to fight battles you were never meant to carry. You would have stepped into responsibilities without the clarity you now have. You would have accepted less than what has now been secured for you. The delay refined your expectation. It removed what was temporary so that only what was lasting could remain. And here is something even deeper. The delay also revealed people. It showed you who was consistent and who was conditional. It exposed who supported you in silence and who only appeared when things seemed favorable. It allowed masks to fall without confrontation, without force. And even though it may have hurt at times, it created clarity that you could not have gained any other way. Because what is being released to you now cannot be surrounded by confusion. It must be supported by alignment. This is why certain connections faded. This is why certain situations dissolved. This is why things you once held on to tightly began to slip away. Not because you were losing, but because you were being separated from what could not go with you into this next phase. And yes, it was uncomfortable. Yes, it felt uncertain. Yes, there were moments where you questioned whether anything was actually moving forward. But now you can see it differently. Now you can understand that what felt like delay was actually timing being perfected. Because if this document had been signed earlier, it would not have carried the same authority. It would not have had the same clarity attached to it. It would not have aligned with the version of you that exists now, the version that is ready, aware, and capable of receiving without hesitation. You had to become this version first. And now that you are here, everything that was waiting for you is no longer waiting. It is moving. So do not look back at the delay with frustration anymore. Do not replay those moments with regret or confusion. Because nothing was wasted. Nothing was lost. Every part of your journey has led you precisely to this point, where what was once delayed is now being delivered in full. You are no longer behind. You are exactly where you need to be. And what is coming to you now will not require the same waiting, the same uncertainty, or the same struggle. Because the process is complete. The timing is aligned. And the release has already been approved. Type "I trust the timing" in the comments if this truth resonates within you. Lesson code 444 is now covering your path forward. Now listen carefully, because what you are about to understand will change the way you see everything you have been through. This was never just about delays. It was never just about timing. It was a battle. A real one. Not visible to your eyes, but undeniable in its effects. And whether you realized it or not, you were standing in the middle of it. Because anything that carries weight in your life, anything that has the power to shift your direction, elevate your position, and alter your future will always attract resistance. Not by chance, but by design. There were forces that recognized what was written about you long before you stepped into awareness of it. There were patterns that had grown comfortable in your life, cycles that had repeated themselves for years, even generations. And the moment something new was approved for you, the moment this document began moving toward completion, those patterns reacted. That is why things became intense. That is why situations felt heavier than usual. That is why moments that should have been simple became complicated. Because something was trying to hold its ground. You may have noticed it in subtle ways. Sudden confusion where clarity used to exist. Unexpected resistance in areas that once flowed easily. Emotional weight that didn't match your circumstances. Conversations that drained you instead of building you. These were not random disruptions. They were signs of pressure. Pressure created by something that did not want to release its hold. Because understand this clearly, not everything that leaves your life does so quietly. Some things resist before they release. And that resistance can feel personal when it is happening, even though it is not about you at all. It is about what you carry. It is about what has been assigned to your life. It is about what is now being activated through this document. There were also people, whether intentionally or unknowingly, who became part of this resistance, not because they were against you personally, but because they were aligned with versions of you that no longer exist. And when you began to shift, when your mindset started to change, when your direction became clear, it disrupted the dynamic. And disruption always reveals truth. This is why you may have experienced tension where there was once comfort, distance where there was once closeness, misunderstanding where there was once ease. It was not random. It was exposure. Because what cannot align with your next level will eventually reveal itself. And while that may have felt uncomfortable, it was necessary. Because what is being released to you now cannot be surrounded by hidden resistance. It cannot coexist with misalignment. It requires clarity. It requires space. It requires a foundation that is stable enough to support what is coming. But the battle was not only external. There was also an internal conflict. Moments where you questioned yourself. Moments where doubt tried to settle in. Moments where you wondered if you were reading things correctly, if you were moving in the right direction, if you were expecting too much. That internal tension, that back and forth, was part of the same pressure. Because resistance does not always attack directly. Sometimes it distracts. Sometimes it confuses. Sometimes it tries to make you pause long enough to miss your moment. But you did not miss it. You are still here. You are still aware. You are still moving forward. And that alone tells you something important. The resistance did not succeed. Because if it had, you would not be hearing this now. You would not be in this moment of clarity. You would not be standing at the point where everything is beginning to shift in your favor. The battle may have slowed things down, but it did not stop what was already decided. And now that the document has been signed, now that Archangel Michael has stepped in to enforce what has been approved, the resistance no longer has the same authority it once did. It cannot hold what has already been released. It cannot block what is now being delivered. It cannot delay what is already in motion. This is why you might begin to feel a shift in your energy, a sense of lightness where there was once weight, a clarity where there was once confusion. Because what was pressing against you is losing its hold. The battle is not what defines this moment. The outcome is. And the outcome has already been decided in your favor. So do not look back at the struggle with fear. Do not carry the weight of what tried to resist you, because it no longer has the authority it once did. You have moved beyond that point, and what is coming to you now will not require the same level of resistance to receive, because the battle has already been fought, and the release has already begun. Type "the battle is over" in the comments if you receive this truth. Lesson code 555 is now surrounding your life with protection and clarity. Now this is where everything begins to shift in a way you cannot ignore. This is the moment where what was once unseen starts to take form in your reality. Because June 26 was not just a date of decision, it was a line drawn. A dividing line between what was and what will be. And once that line is crossed, things do not return to how they used to be. You are stepping into a turning point, not a gradual adjustment, not a slow transition, but a clear shift that begins to unfold around you, sometimes quietly, sometimes suddenly, but always intentionally. And the first thing that changes is your awareness. You begin to see differently. Situations that once confused you will now appear simple. Decisions that once felt heavy will now feel clear. You will no longer feel the need to overanalyze everything or seek constant reassurance from others. Because something within you has settled. Something within you has aligned. And that alignment creates a confidence that does not need external validation. This is how you will know the shift has begun. It starts within you before it shows around you. But then the external begins to respond. You may notice that things which once required effort begin to move without force. Conversations become easier. Opportunities appear without you chasing them. Delays that once felt permanent begin to resolve themselves without explanation. It may even feel unfamiliar at first because you have grown used to resistance. But this is not resistance anymore. This is response. What has been signed over your life is now creating movement in your favor. Not because you are pushing harder, but because the path has been cleared. What once stood in the way is no longer positioned to block you. And because of that, things begin to flow in a way that feels natural but is actually strategic. You will also notice a shift in timing. Things will begin to happen faster. Where you once waited weeks or months for clarity, you may now receive answers within days or even moments. Where decisions once dragged out, they will now reach resolution quickly. This is not coincidence. This is alignment accelerating your experience. Because once divine timing activates, delays lose their grip. And here is something else you must pay attention to. Your energy will change. You will feel lighter. Not because everything around you is perfect, but because the weight you were carrying is no longer attached to you. The pressure that once surrounded your decisions, the tension that once followed your thoughts, it begins to lift. And in its place, there is a calmness, a steadiness, a sense that you are no longer fighting to move forward. You are simply moving. And that movement creates a new rhythm in your life. But with this shift comes separation. Because not everything, and not everyone, can move with you into this new phase. And this is where the turning point becomes visible. You may begin to notice distance forming naturally. Conversations becoming shorter. Connections becoming quieter. Not out of conflict, but out of misalignment. And it will not feel forced. It will feel clear. Because once you step into alignment, anything that does not match it becomes obvious without explanation. You will no longer feel the need to hold on to what no longer fits. You will no longer feel obligated to maintain what drains you. And you will not need to explain your shift to anyone who cannot feel it for themselves. This is not loss. This is refinement. And as space is created, new alignment begins to enter. New opportunities. New connections. New ideas. Things that match your current level, not your past one. And you will recognize them not by how impressive they appear, but by how natural they feel. Because what is meant for you will no longer feel like something you have to fight to keep. It will feel like something that belongs. This is the turning point. A moment where effort becomes alignment. A moment where waiting becomes movement. A moment where confusion becomes clarity. And you are not approaching it, you are already in it. So do not hesitate now. Do not question what you are beginning to feel. Do not step back into the mindset that belonged to the waiting season. Because that season is over. You have crossed the line. And everything from this point forward will begin to reflect that shift. Type "I step into the shift" in the comments if you are ready to move forward. Blessing code 6262 is now activating acceleration in your life. Now listen, because this part requires honesty. Not surface level awareness, but deep recognition. Because when something like this activates in your life, when a document is signed, enforced, and released, your environment does not stay the same. It cannot stay the same. And the first place you will see this shift is in the people around you. This is where things become undeniable. You may have already started noticing it. Subtle changes at first. A different tone in conversations. A distance you cannot quite explain. Or in some cases an unexpected closeness from people you did not anticipate. These are not random emotional shifts. These are signs of realignment. Because when you change, everything connected to you is forced to respond. There are people in your life who were aligned with your previous season. They understood you based on who you were, not who you were becoming. They were comfortable with your pace, your patterns, your level of awareness at the time. But now that you are shifting, now that something new has been activated over your life, that same alignment no longer holds. And when alignment breaks, one of two things happens. People either adjust or they distance themselves. Some will try to understand your shift. They will sense the change in you and make space for it. They may not fully comprehend what is happening, but they will respect it. These are the ones who are meant to continue with you, because their presence does not conflict with your growth. But others will not adjust. Not because they are against you, but because they are not aligned with where you are going. And this is where it becomes clear. Conversations may feel forced. Interactions may feel strained. You may notice a lack of connection where there was once ease. And in some cases, there may even be tension without a clear reason. That tension is not personal. It is positional. It is the result of you moving into a space they cannot occupy. And this is where you must be careful, because the instinct is often to hold on. To try to maintain what once felt natural. To explain yourself. To bring things back to what they were. But what you must understand is this: what you are stepping into does not require you to hold on to what no longer fits. It requires you to release it. Not with conflict, not with resentment, but with clarity. Because forcing alignment where it no longer exists will only create resistance in your own path. And then there are those who will reveal themselves. Not by what they say, but by how they respond to your shift. You may begin to notice reactions that feel unexpected. Subtle resistance. Unspoken discomfort. A lack of support where you once assumed it would always be. And this may surprise you, especially if these are people you have known for a long time. But this is part of the exposure. Because when your life begins to move forward, it reveals who was aligned with your growth and who was only aligned with your familiarity. And this is not meant to create division. It is meant to create clarity. Because what is being released to you now cannot exist in an environment filled with hidden resistance or unspoken misalignment. It requires a space where you can move freely, without needing to adjust yourself to maintain connections that no longer serve your direction. At the same time, something else will begin to happen. New alignment will appear. You may encounter people who understand you without explanation. Conversations that feel natural from the beginning. Opportunities that come through unexpected connections. These are not coincidences. These are alignments entering your life because you are now positioned to receive them. And the difference will be clear. You will not feel like you have to prove yourself. You will not feel like you have to adjust your energy. You will not feel drained after interaction. Instead, you will feel supported. You will feel understood. You will feel aligned. This is how you will know. Because what is meant for you will no longer require you to question its place in your life. And here is the most important part. You must remember this: shift in people is not a loss. It is a refinement. It is the removal of what cannot support your next level and the introduction of what can. And while it may feel uncomfortable at times, it is necessary for what is now unfolding. Because you are no longer in the same position you were before. You are no longer in the same phase. You are no longer operating at the same level. And your environment must reflect that. So allow the shift. Allow the distance where it naturally forms. Allow the clarity where it reveals itself. Because what is leaving is making space, and what is coming will not require you to hold it together. It will align with you naturally. Type "I accept the alignment" in the comments if you are ready to embrace this shift. Blessing code 7070 is now guiding your connections and surroundings. Now this is where many people hesitate to fully receive what is being revealed. Not because they do not want it, but because they have been conditioned to expect less. Conditioned by past experiences, by delays, by disappointments, by moments where things did not work out the way they hoped. And because of that, when something significant is finally released, there is a part of them that questions whether it can truly be this complete. But listen carefully, because what has been signed over your life is not partial. It is not limited. It is not reduced. What is being released to you now carries fullness. There is wealth attached to this document, but not just in the way you may first think. Yes, there is financial alignment. Yes, there are resources that will begin to move toward you. Yes, there are opportunities that will create stability where there was once uncertainty. But this wealth goes deeper than numbers. It is the kind of provision that supports your life in a way that feels secure, consistent, and sustainable. You will not have to force it. You will not have to chase it, because it is being aligned to you, not the other way around. And this is why the delay was necessary, because what is coming required the right structure around it. Without that structure, it would not have lasted. Without that preparation, it would have slipped through your hands like past opportunities may have. But now it arrives differently. It arrives with stability. Along with wealth there is favor, and favor changes how things respond to you. It opens doors that effort alone could not open. It places you in the right position at the right time without you having to manipulate outcomes. It shifts how people perceive you, how opportunities find you, how decisions turn in your direction. And you may not even fully understand why things begin to work in your favor, but you will feel it. You will recognize it. Because what once felt difficult will begin to feel accessible. What once required explanation will begin to flow without it. And this favor, it is not random. It is assigned. It is part of what has been written in this document, attached to your name, connected to your path. And once it begins to activate, you will not need to question it. You will not need to prove it. You will simply experience it. And then there is restoration. This is the part that reaches into your past and begins to reconcile what felt unresolved. Not by returning things exactly as they were, but by replacing what was lost with something that aligns with who you are now. Because restoration is not repetition. It is renewal. You may find that things you once missed begin to reappear in new forms. Opportunities that resemble what you once desired, but with greater clarity. Connections that reflect what you once needed, but without the complications that once existed. Situations that feel familiar but function differently. This is how restoration works. It does not take you backward. It brings forward what was meant to be, without the limitations that once held it back. And this is why you must remain open. Because what is coming may not look exactly how you imagined it, but it will carry everything you needed it to. And perhaps even more. This is the level of completeness that has been assigned to you. Not fragments, not pieces, but fullness. And here is what you must hold on to in this moment. You are not stepping into something uncertain. You are stepping into something that has already been secured. The wealth is not being created now. The favor is not being decided now. The restoration is not being considered now. It has already been written. It has already been approved. And now it is being released. So do not minimize what is coming. Do not reduce it to fit your past expectations. Do not doubt its arrival simply because of what you have experienced before. Because this is not the same. This is aligned. This is intentional. This is complete. And it has your name on it. Type "I receive fullness" in the comments if you are ready to accept what is being released. Blessing code 8888 is now activating abundance, favor, and restoration in your life. And as you receive this release of wealth, favor, and restoration, understand this: every seed you sow becomes a channel through which heaven reaches another soul still waiting for their moment of clarity. This is not about supporting a platform. It is about expanding the light that is breaking chains in lives you may never see. The word speaks, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And in this very moment, that promise is alive, breathing over your obedience. I feel this strongly. I am choosing to become a vessel, allowing what flows through me to reach someone who is still searching for truth. When you act now through the PayPal link in the description with a QR code on your screen, you are not just giving. You are aligning with a divine exchange that multiplies beyond your understanding. This is your moment to move, not later, not eventually, but now. And as you receive this declaration, what you give in faith will return to you and overflow in ways you did not expect but will clearly recognize. Step into it now. Now this is where everything becomes personal. Not just something happening around you, but something requiring your awareness, your discipline, and your alignment. Because even though the document has been signed, even though it has been delivered, even though it is already moving toward you, there is still a role you must play in how fully it manifests in your life. This is not about earning it. It is about aligning with it. Because what has been released operates at a different level than where you once stood. And if you try to receive it with the same mindset, the same habits, the same patterns that existed in your waiting season, you will feel friction. Not because it is not meant for you, but because you have not fully stepped into position yet. This is the test. Not a test of worthiness, but a test of awareness. You must begin to recognize when you are slipping back into old thinking. The tendency to doubt when something good begins to happen. The instinct to question whether it will last. The habit of preparing for disappointment even when there is no evidence of it. These patterns were formed during your waiting season, but they do not belong in your receiving season. And if you carry them forward, they will distort your experience. So you must become conscious. You must catch yourself in those moments and choose differently. Because alignment is not automatic. It is intentional. There will also be moments where you are presented with choices that reflect your old path. Situations that feel familiar. Opportunities that resemble what you once accepted. And in those moments, it may seem easier to go with what you know. To stay within what feels comfortable. To avoid stepping fully into something new. But this is where your alignment is tested. Because what is familiar is not always what is meant for you. And what is meant for you will not always feel familiar at first. You must trust the shift. You must trust that what is coming into your life now requires a different response from you. A different level of clarity. A different level of confidence. A different level of discernment. And that means saying no to things you once would have accepted. It means stepping away from situations that once felt normal. It means choosing what aligns even when it requires change. And then there is your focus. Because what you give your attention to will determine how clearly you experience what is being released. If you continue to focus on what is no longer relevant, what has already passed, what has already been resolved, you will divide your awareness. You will split your energy between what is ending and what is beginning. And that will slow your ability to fully receive. So you must become selective. selective with your thoughts, selective with your attention, selective with what you allow to hold space in your mind. Because what is coming into your life now requires clarity, not distraction. And here is something even deeper you must trust without constant confirmation. Because in your waiting season, you looked for signs. You looked for reassurance. You looked for validation that something was happening. But now you are stepping into a phase where things are already in motion. And if you keep looking for confirmation at every step, you will miss the flow. Because this is no longer about proving that it is real. It is about allowing it to unfold. You will know it is real by the consistency of what begins to happen, by the way things align without force, by the way clarity replaces confusion, by the way movement replaces delay, and that will be enough. So release the need to question every step, release the need to analyze every shift, and step fully into trust. Because the moment you do, everything begins to feel different. You move differently. You think differently. You respond differently. And that difference creates space for what has been released to settle into your life completely. This is your role in this moment. Not to force, not to chase, but to align. To recognize when you are stepping out of position and gently bring yourself back. To remain aware of what belongs to your past and what belongs to your present. To stay grounded in what has already been decided rather than what you once feared. Because what had been signed over your life does not require you to struggle for it. It requires you to receive it clearly, fully, and without hesitation. Type "I am aligned" in the comments if you are ready to step fully into this position. Blessing code 999 is now strengthening your clarity and alignment. Now this is where doubt loses its voice. This is where what you have heard, what you have felt, what has been spoken over your life begins to show itself in ways that cannot be ignored. Because when something is truly activated in the spirit, it does not remain hidden forever. It begins to leave evidence, and you are about to see it. But you must understand this clearly: the signs will not always arrive in loud, dramatic ways. They will often begin subtly. Quiet confirmations, small shifts, moments that seem ordinary on the surface but carry a deeper meaning when you pause and recognize them. This is how manifestation begins. You may start noticing patterns, repeating thoughts that bring clarity instead of confusion. Ideas that arrive with a sense of certainty rather than doubt. A calmness in situations that once would have unsettled you. These are not coincidences. These are internal confirmations that your alignment has shifted and your awareness is catching up with what has already been released. Then the external signs begin. Conversations that seem to happen at the exact right moment. Information reaching you without you searching for it. Doors opening through connections you did not plan. Situations resolving themselves without the struggle you once expected. These are not random events. They are responses to what had been set in motion. And you will feel it. Because there will be a difference. The difference between forcing something to happen and watching it unfold naturally. A difference will become clear to you. You may also begin to notice a change in how people interact with you. A shift in tone. A different level of respect. Unexpected support from places you did not anticipate. This is not about them changing randomly. It is about your position changing and everything around you adjusting accordingly. Because once alignment is activated, your environment begins to respond. And then there are the moments that will stand out. The moments where something happens, and you pause because you recognize it immediately. A realization that arrives without effort. A situation that aligns too perfectly to dismiss. A moment where you feel a sense of certainty that cannot be explained logically. These are your confirmations. Not loud announcements, but undeniable clarity. And here is something important you must remember: do not overlook the small signs while waiting for something big. Because the small signs are the foundation. They are the evidence that movement has already begun. And as you recognize them, as you acknowledge them, as you stay aware of them, they begin to build into something greater. This is how manifestation grows. Not all at once, but in layers. Layer by layer, until what once felt distant becomes visible, tangible, real. You may also notice something shifting within your sense of timing. A feeling that things are happening exactly when they should. Not too early, not too late, but precisely when they are meant to. And this will remove the urgency you once felt. A need to hurry. The pressure to make things happen. Because you will begin to trust the flow. And that trust will allow everything to unfold without resistance. There will also be clarity, replacing confusion in areas that once felt uncertain. Decisions becoming easier. Direction becoming clearer. You will no longer feel pulled in multiple directions. Instead, you will feel focused, grounded, certain of your next step, even if you do not see the entire path yet. This is another confirmation, because clarity is one of the first signs that alignment has taken place. And then there is peace, not the absence of movement, but the presence of stability within movement. A sense that even as things change around you, you remain steady. That even as new opportunities arise, you are not overwhelmed. That even as things accelerate, you are not losing control. This peace is not something you create. It is something that arrives when everything is in position. And that is where you are now. So pay attention. Not with fear, not with expectation that creates pressure, but with awareness. Allow yourself to notice what is unfolding. Allow yourself to recognize what is shifting. Allow yourself to trust what you are experiencing. Because the signs are already beginning. And they will continue. Until what was once Goga becomes something you can clearly see. Type "I see" the signs in the comments if you are recognizing these confirmations. Blessing code 1010 is now opening your awareness to every sign meant for you. And now listen carefully, because this is not meant to create fear. It is meant to bring clarity. Because every moment like this, every divine release, every spiritual turning point, every activation that carries your name, also carries responsibility. Not pressure, but awareness. Not fear, but choice. Because what has been delivered to you now is real. And what is real must be recognized. You have already seen how everything has aligned to bring you to this point. The timing, the message, the shift you have felt within yourself, the clarity that has begun to replace confusion. None of this is accidental. None of this is random. It is precise. It is intentional. It is meant to be acknowledged. But here is what you must understand: not every opportunity is missed through rejection. Some are missed through distraction. Some are missed through hesitation. Some are missed by returning to what feels familiar instead of stepping into what is new. And that is the warning. Because ignoring this moment does not mean everything disappears immediately. It does not mean the document is taken away the second you look elsewhere. But what it does mean is that the flow begins to slow. The clarity begins to blur. The alignment that was activated begins to weaken. Not because it was never meant for you, but because it was not fully received. You must remember what has been signed over your life operates at a higher level than what you have previously experienced. And if you continue to move with the same level of awareness, the same habits, the same patterns of distraction, you will gradually disconnect from the full experience of what is being released. You may still see parts of it. You may still experience moments of alignment. But you will not experience the fullness. And that is what must be avoided. Because partial alignment creates confusion. It makes you question whether something is real when it is already in motion. It makes you doubt what you once felt clearly. It makes you return to overthinking, to hesitation, to the same patterns that belong to your waiting season. And that is how moments are missed. Not through one decision, but through a series of small disconnections. Choosing distraction over awareness. Choosing doubt over trust. Choosing comfort over alignment. And slowly, without realizing it, stepping out of position. This is why the warning is necessary. Because what is being delivered to you now is not meant to be approached casually. It is not something to acknowledge for a moment and then forget. It is something to stay connected to. Something to remain aware of. Something to move with. You do not need to force anything. You do not need to control every outcome. But you do need to stay present. Because presence is what keeps you aligned. Presence is what allows you to recognize the signs as they unfold. Presence is what keeps your focus on what is being built rather than what has already passed. And when you lose that presence, everything begins to feel distant again. Not because it has gone away, but because your attention has shifted. And attention determines experience. So this is the moment where you choose, not once but continuously, to stay aligned, to stay aware, to stay connected to what has already been decided over your life. You must also be mindful of what tries to pull you away. Old habits returning quietly. Old thought patterns trying to reestablish themselves. Old distractions presenting themselves in familiar ways. They may not appear as obstacles. They may appear as comfort. But comfort is not always alignment. And if you allow comfort to guide you back into old patterns, you will begin to feel the difference. You will feel the shift in your clarity. You will feel the change in your momentum. You will feel the distance between where you are and where you were just beginning to step into. This is how you will know. So do not ignore what you have already recognized. Do not dismiss what you have already felt. Do not step away from what has already begun. Because this moment is active. It is alive. It is unfolding in real time. And your awareness is what allows you to fully step into it. This is not about fear of missing out. This is about recognizing what is already here and choosing not to walk past it. Type "I stay aware" in the comments if you are choosing to remain aligned. Blessing code 1111 is now strengthening your focus and spiritual awareness. Now this is the moment everything has been leading to. Not another preparation. Not another delay. Not another explanation. This is the delivery. You have heard the announcement. You have understood the document. You have felt the shift. You have seen the signs beginning to form. And now Archangel Michael steps forward one final time, not as a messenger at a distance, not as a presence you sense faintly, but as the one who completes the assignment. Because what was signed must now be placed. And this moment is not symbolic. It is spiritual reality. Picture this not with doubt, but with clarity. The atmosphere around you is still. Focus. Intentional. There is no confusion here. No hesitation. Low interference. Because everything that could have blocked this has already been removed. Everything that could have delayed this has already been settled. And now Michael stands before you, not to speak again, not to explain again, but to deliver. What he carries is not something you chase. It is not something you earn. It is not something you negotiate. It is already yours, already approved, already sealed with your name written into it with precision and authority. And as it is placed into your life, something shifts permanently. This is not a temporary moment. This is a transition into a new position. You may not feel fireworks. You may not see instant transformation in every area all at once. But something within you will recognize it immediately. A certainty, a grounding, a quiet knowing that something has been completed, that something has arrived, and from this moment forward you will not be the same. Because when something is delivered at this level, it does not sit still. It begins to unfold. You will start to see it in your decisions. A new confidence where hesitation once existed. A new clarity where confusion once lingered. You will no longer second-guess yourself in the same way. You will no longer feel the need to return to old patterns for reassurance. Because what has been placed in your life carries its own confirmation. And then it will begin to show externally. Situations will align without force. Opportunities will present themselves without struggle. Timing will begin to feel precise instead of delayed. And you will notice that things are no longer happening randomly, they are happening in order. This is the effect of what has just been delivered. It creates structure where there was once uncertainty. It creates direction where there was once wandering. It creates movement where there was once waiting. And most importantly, it creates stability. Because this is not something that will disappear. This is not something that will slip away. This is secured, protected, established, and you are now positioned within it. But here is what you must carry forward. Do not treat this moment lightly. Do not return to the mindset that belonged to the waiting season. Do not minimize what has just been placed into your life simply because it did not arrive in the way you expected. Because what has been delivered is greater than your expectation. Is deeper than what you imagined. It is more complete than what you hoped for. And it will continue to reveal itself in layers as you move forward. So walk with it. Not ahead of it. Not behind it. But with it. Allow it to unfold. Allow it to guide your decisions. Allow it to reshape how you see your future. Because your future is no longer uncertain. It has already been written. It has already been signed. And now it has been placed into your hands. This is your moment. This is your confirmation. This is your beginning. Type IT is in my hands in the comments if you receive this final delivery. Blessing code 1212 is now sealing this new season over your life. And now, as this divine delivery rests in your hands, hear this truth. Every seed you release becomes a flame that carries this very light into another soul still waiting in darkness. This is not about supporting a message. This is about multiplying a movement that heaven is using to awaken, restore, and call people back into alignment. The word declares, whoever sows generously will also reap generously. And right now, that promise is speaking directly to you, alive and active in this moment. I step forward in obedience, knowing that through my action, someone else will receive the clarity that changes everything. When you give through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are stepping into a prophetic exchange, one that opens the heavens over your life as you help open the eyes of another. This is not later. This is now. And as you receive this blessing, what you sow in faith will return to you in multiplied favor, unexpected provision, and undeniable confirmation. Step into it now.